Hey guys, so I'm reviewing a video right now on Erin's laptop. This is her personal laptop that she's been using while she's been working here for the past year plus. And it is so slow. So we are buying her components so that she can build her new computer. They should be coming in today, Amazon and some other places. She has earned it, she deserves it. This is painful. But she's a trooper. So the new one's gonna come. We've already got the screens kind of set up for it, and I'm very excited. She wants to build that, so figured I'd start filming. Painful. It's supposed to be playing. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to an Erin video. In this video, I'm gonna build my very first PC. I don't have any experience doing this kind of thing before, but it has been on my bucket list for about 3 years now. So I'm really excited to get started doing it, and I'm headed home right now. It's Friday evening, and so I'm gonna spend Saturday, part of Saturday, hopefully just part of Saturday, working on the PC build, and then hopefully it'll be finished on Sunday, and then I can get started and edit on the new PC starting on Monday morning. That's the goal. So, come along for the ride. So I guess step one, after deciding on what all the parts are going to be and everything, would be to take this trunk load of boxes right in there all the way up my stairs to get to the apartment on the 3rd floor of the house that I'm living at. Alright, yeah! Now that I've got all of the stuff for the computer build up the stairs, it's time to go to the gym, because I am gonna procrastinate by doing that a little bit, and then we're gonna get started on this computer build in the morning. See you then. Hey guys, so it's about 6 p.m. on Saturday. It took me a while to actually finally get started on this computer build. I had a bunch of stuff to do this morning, and then I had a hair appointment. I got my hair dyed blonde highlights. You can't really tell right now, but it took a while. And then I had to do the laundry, and I hadn't eaten much all day. So anyway, I'm just making up excuses at this point, but I'm excited to finally get started. We're just gonna dive right in now. Step one is obviously get the cats out of the room that you're going to build the computer in, because they could cause some static and they could get fur all up in that motherboard or in the case. But look how cute he is! Oh, hi buddy! He likes to be in whatever room we're in, but I'm going to kick him out now. Bye, Bruce! The motherboard. This is my first time ever taking out a motherboard and looking at it for myself, but I've watched a few videos now about how to build a PC, and I've done a little bit of research, so I think that I understand a little bit better about what each of these parts are. So basically, the CPU is going to go right here on that spot, and then I'm going to put some thermal paste on, and then I'll put the cooler that I chose on top of that. My CPU did come with a cooler, but we chose a different one, which I'll show you in just a second. And then we also have the slots for the RAM here, the slots for the power supply. We have the ports for the graphic card right there. And then we have, I believe it's called the I/O port or something like that. And that is essentially our motherboard. So let's just get started with putting in the CPU first. Oh, that is a hefty little chip. It's a little bit heavy. Anyway, I'm holding it from its sides, and I am looking for the little golden triangle, and I found it. So I've officially installed the CPU. Feel really good about that. Let's see if I feel so good about the rest of the build. So the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to read the manual about the CPU cooler. This is the manual. I've got my thermal paste on my CPU, so I think it'll be a good enough amount. It'll be perfect. I'm gonna mount the CPU cooler next. This is the fan that I decided to go with. The Freezer 12CO Compact Semi-Passive Tower CPU cooler. It's a smaller fan, so it's going to be a little bit louder. It's only 92 millimeters, but I don't really mind. I think it's going to be totally fine. So I'm working on prepping our CPU cooler right now for the motherboard. I've got the mounts on there right now, but before I put it onto the motherboard, I want to take a look at our case that we have right here. It is the Corsair Carbide 100R. It's generally known as a pretty cheap case, but it's a pretty solid case. So we're just going to open it up, and we're going to take a look at, the fan that's already installed in the back of the case, and we're going to see if I want to place the CPU cooler facing the back or facing the front. Ooh, that didn't sound good, but it's actually off. That's fine. It's fine. I got the second panel off. You can see that there's a nice clear panel in there, so I'll get to see the inside of my PC once it is finished being built. So now I'm going to show you the inside of my case with my iPhone 8 Plus. Yeah, because right now I'm recording everything on a pretty old iPod. Okay, so here we have the case, the Corsair Carbide 100R. These are the ports for the optical drive. I've only got one optical drive. And these are the ports for the hard drive. We've got a little box of what I can only imagine are a bunch of screws and everything in there. And then we've got our cords, which we'll deal with when we do cable management. And we have got a case fan already installed on the back of the PC. I am one screw into mounting the CPU cooler, and man, I am finding this magnetic screwdriver just so handy. It is not a Phillips 2, but it is a Mastercraft 2, I believe, so, and it's working great. I love it. The CPU cooler is now installed, so you can take a look at that. I had a hard time figuring out which screws were 6-32 by 20 millimeter, but I just kind of tested out the 3 different kinds of screws that they provided in the case for the CPU cooler, and I think that I just chose the ones that fit the best in the holes, so I guess those ones are the ones that are 6-32 by 20 millimeters, and that's great. I'm really happy with that. The pipes look really nice and flat, and now I'm just going to put the fan on. I did decide to put the fan on facing the back of the case, just because I don't mind moving the other case fan to the front of the case, and I think that'll provide better airflow. I just have a good feeling about that. You know what's funny is that it's a really good thing that I decided to put the fan for the CPU cooler facing towards the back of the case, because if I put it facing towards the other way, then I would have covered up my my RAM slots, and I'm using 4 sticks of RAM, so that would have actually been a problem, and I would have had to, take off the fan from the CPU cooler, and it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But that's just kind of funny because I didn't think of that. That's just the kind of thing that pops up when it's your first time building a PC. So anyone building a PC that wants to think about that, there you go. This is the RAM I decided on. I'm not really going to go very much into a lot of detail, but basically there's 4 sticks of RAM. This RAM was the most compatible with, I believe, the processor, or it's like one of the most compatible ones, and it's also just better to have 4 sticks for this particular build, is what I've been told. So there we go, that's 4 by 8 gigabytes, that's 32 gigabytes total, and it's got RGB color. Just for fun. I would have been fine without RGB, but it came with it, so that's fine too. Next step is we're going to put in the power supply. It's also Corsair, same as the case. So I like how consistent that is, and it is 650 watts, which should be plenty for everything else that I have. So that's great. We're just gonna install that now. I just opened up the power supply and just look at the quality of this bag. I don't know if that's typical for everything in power supplies to come in such nice high quality bags, but man, look at this. All of the cables are just in there nice and tidy, wrapped up, which is expected, but it came in this really solid bag, and then also there is this velvet bag around the actual power supply. That's a really nice touch, Corsair. That's really, really nice in my opinion. And then it also came with a little snack. Just kidding. I almost went with the bronze series of the Corsair power supply, but someone online on Tom's Hardware convinced me to upgrade to the gold one, and maybe that is why the packaging is so nice. I'm not sure, but I'm really glad that I got the gold one. Yay, Tom's Hardware. Shout out to that guy. I just finished putting all of these cables into the power supply. It didn't take long once I realized which cables were what, but I definitely had to refer to the good old manual here. And what I did was I just took all of the power cables outside of their bag and I laid them out on the floor and I organized them so that I saw exactly which ones had to be the SATA cables, etc. And I found that a really helpful strategy. So now I'm just gonna zip tie these guys together and I'm gonna slip it into the case. This is probably obvious to most of you, but my power supply is fully modular, meaning that I can move these cables wherever I want for optimal cable management. For a second I was looking around for my screws for my power supply, and then I was like, is this little bag for it? And then I read the bag and it says 4 PSU. So yes, it is for the power supply. Man, they just make this so easy, don't they? I love it. Okay, so here you can see that we've put the power supply into the case and the cables are all managed. Well, at least they are sticking outside the back of the case, and the next step is to figure out where the case fan is going to go. I feel pretty good about how the build is going so far. Right now, I'm gonna put in the optical drive. I just finished putting in one of the fans. Well, basically I just moved the case fan from where it was to the top of the case because I want to put in the two 140mm fans that I got as extra fans to put on the back of the case. And the case fan used to be on the back of the case and now it's not. Now the new fans are going to go there, and that is how my airflow is going to go. The optical drive is in. That's how it looks in its bay there. It's a 5.25 inch. Yeah, I think it looks great. It just slid right in. It was super easy. I think that the hard part is going to be making sure that all of these cables get plugged into their right places on the motherboard, but that shouldn't be too hard either, I hope. There are a lot of cables, but they're all pretty well labeled. So the next step is to put in the hard drives, and I have one hard drive and one SSD, and the SSD is 500 gigabytes and the hard drive is 2 terabytes, just so you know. We take a brief pause from this build to welcome Roland back to the apartment.
What the fuck is this?
Welcome back, Roland. We're vlogging the PC build. It's gonna be great! Alright guys, welcome back. We're starting again with the build. It is Sunday early afternoon and we're ready to get started again. So last night we finished with installing the optical drive. So since we're just starting and it's a brand new day, let's just start off with putting the motherboard right into the case. We might as well just jump into the main event and do that. So here we go, we're gonna get started. It looks like my I/O shield is already on the motherboard, so I'll just put it in like that. Okay, so in order to install my motherboard, I have taken the cardboard out from underneath the motherboard. Don't worry, I know it looks sloppy, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And I've moved the cardboard to underneath the case, And I've taken the cables and I've just put them outside of the case just so I can lay the case down flat. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my case is a mid-tower case with an ATX form factor. So if you can see there, it says ATX on it. And that goes, and then my motherboard has an AM4 socket. So the AM4 socket goes with the ATX case, and so it is compatible, and I'm just gonna screw it on now. So in order to install the motherboard, it looks like I'm gonna be using these screws that came with the case, and I'm basically just going to make sure that the motherboard is aligned with that little pin in the middle there. I think it's called the standoff screw or something like that. And then I'm just going to align that in, and then I'm gonna screw it in. And hopefully it'll go pretty smoothly. Wish me luck. So it looks like I'm going to unscrew the upper fan that I had screwed in. I really shouldn't have screwed in that fan last night. I got way too excited about airflow and I hadn't even installed my motherboard yet. So that's the kind of thing that you do when you're a first timer, is that you mess up the order of those steps, and then it's a learning process and you figure out which steps are best to take first when you're actually when you're building a PC. So I think I've learned that it's best to install your motherboard before your peripherals, such as case fans. I think that is a good tip. That would have helped me. Case fan removed, and now it's time to get that motherboard installed for real this time. Alright, so it looks like my motherboard fit in very nicely once I got that case fan removed. I guess I was just excited about doing that because I wanted to get the cables facing into the case before the motherboard was put in, because I was thinking that maybe it would be better if the cables were already in there so that I didn't have to worry about being able to fit those in and then plugging them into the motherboard. But this way seems to work a lot better because you're actually able to get the motherboard in. And as you can see right there, that is the I/O shield already pre-installed into the motherboard, and it's all lined up and nice and flush with the case. So all the holes for the screws seem to be lined up pretty well. So next step is we're just gonna screw it in. For me, half this process, I swear, is just figuring out which screws do what. If you take a look at these screws, these are the screws that I thought were the case screws that came with the case in order to screw in the motherboard, but it's actually these really, really tiny ones that fit in the motherboard screw holes. So, that's kind of funny. So now that the motherboard is all installed and screwed in and everything, we have these cables here that came with the case, and they pertain to basically these buttons right here. So we have some USB ports and we have the power button, etc. So I'm going to start with the USB 3.0 cable, which is going to go right there where it's labeled USB 3.0. And we're going to get started with plugging everything in. In case you're wondering, here's a little video of what exactly those cables are that I'm going to be plugging in. And yeah, that's just a good reference to have. It's right there in the manual. The manual helps a lot. So as you can tell by my headlamp and ponytail, things have gotten serious in this build. I just spent an hour trying to figure out where the front panel cables go on the motherboard. I couldn't find it in the manual because front panel is apparently labeled F panel, and I didn't find it in the manual. But then when I did find it, it was very, very easy to connect the little cables, and I'll just show you now how that's all plugged in. The front panel are the cables that run from here, and they run down in the case. They come with the case too. They run down, and then you plug them into this little F panel here. It'll tell you in the manual that's the F panel. And then you just follow the instructions in the manual for your particular motherboard to figure out which cables plug into which pins. So as you can see, I've plugged in everything into the motherboard that that I think that I can plug into the motherboard right now, and I'm just going to install those case fans that I mentioned earlier.
Nuts.
Anyway, I'm just going to plug in these fans that I got as extra case fans. They are 140 millimeters, and I think they're going to fit, and I'm probably going to put them up there on the top facing outwards. So I've decided that I want to put the two fans that I got here on the front panel of the case. In order to do that, I have to take out this little hard drive bay section so that I can screw those fans on. So I'm gonna do that now. So it turns out that these fans that I wanted to install, those Noctua 140 millimeter fans, they're great fans, but the screws that came with them are just a little bit too big for the case screw holes on the front panel. So it looks like I'm gonna have to bring in the PC to the workshop tomorrow, and I'm just gonna have to get those holes drilled out a little bit bigger. But for now, we're just gonna continue with the build as if the fans were mounted on there already, and we're gonna mount the hard drives and put on the case fan that came with the case. So what I've just done is I've just installed the hard drive. If you don't know how to do that, basically you can just take a look at your case manual to see how to install the hard drive, but basically you just take out one of the trays. My trays support 2.5 and 3.5 inch hard drives. You just pop it in there. Mine had 3 pegs on either side and it didn't require any screws, so I just did that. And then I also plugged in one of the SATA cables. You can see back there that I plugged in one of the SATA cables. And then the motherboard came with a cable that will look similar to this. It's called a data cable. And one of them, like I got 2 of them that came with my motherboard, and one of them had this little, it was more like a 90-degree angled end on one of the data cables, and then the other end was just a flat end like that. So the flat end just went into one of the SATA slots on the motherboard, and then the 90-degree angle side just went right in there into the back of the hard drive. I'm doing a little bit of cable management too. I know I'm not really supposed to do that till the end of the process, but I thought that it would be good if I slipped all of these 3 SATA cables that I have underneath the final hard drive bay. And then you can see that I put my hard drive on the 3rd to bottom row there in the case, and that's because I think it's just a good idea to leave a little space before the SSD, and the SSD will go on the top level right there, so it just leaves a little bit of space, which leaves a little bit more wiggle room for cable management. And you can see this one SATA cable that I've plugged into the hard drive. I'm not sure if I need to do this yet, but if I do need to do it, then I'll be able to very easily plug it into the SSD drive bay. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with my cables so far, and that's been kind of fun for me. I like organizing stuff. That whole data cable thing that I just explained to you, apparently that was just for the hard drive, and if you had the kind of hard drive that you would, the kind of SSD that you would mount into the PC, but since I have an SSD M2, then I actually screw it to my motherboard just like so. Therefore, I do not need that second data cable just yet, if I even will need it at all. Also, don't forget to put your heatsink on. And so it goes M2 SSD on there, and then you put the heatsink back on, which was already on, but then you take it off in order to put the SSD on, and then you put it back on over top like a sandwich, like a nice little SSD sandwich. This is the build so far. I've been moving very slowly on it. Roland and I took a break to watch a couple episodes of The Office and have some food, but the hard drive is installed, the cables are basically managed, and I understand all of them. And the next step is mount the case fan up there, and I'm gonna put in the video card, and then I'm gonna plug in the PCIe cables, and then it'll be done except for the BIOS setup. Let's see, and then I'll just plug everything in and boot everything up and it'll be all good to go. So I got a little bit carried away with everything after I installed the SSD, but now as you can see I have the graphics card installed. Basically, it was pretty simple. I just took off those two little panels on the back there and then just unpackaged the whole graphics card and then took off the little plastic cover on the microchip and was able to just like slip it right into that slot right there that you can't see, but it basically, if you can see that little metal line, that's a slot and it just slipped right in. It was the right shape for it and everything. And then I did a little bit of cable management. I know it doesn't look amazing right now, but I just kind of slipped the cables to the back and then back in to give my case as much airflow as I could give it, like to the best of my knowledge. I think I did okay with cable management. It's not like the prettiest PC build ever, but I think that it's beautiful because it's mine. So now I've got the Wi-Fi router hooked up and I'm gonna get this thing booted up. I just have to screw on the case panels and everything. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Monday morning and the PC build should be finished by now, and it is. As you can see, everything is running just fine. Look at those RAM sticks. Those RAM sticks are just gorgeous. I'm actually really glad that we got RGB. But the only problem is that even though it appears that everything works and my HDMI cable is plugged in and the keyboard is turned on and the two USB sticks that power the wireless mouse and the wireless keyboard are plugged in there. I've tried a few different slots, so like that's not my ultimate decision with the USB slots. I also tried USB 3.0 too, and I tried the USB slots on the back, but I just having a really hard time with the monitor, because whenever I try and turn on the monitor and I press the delete key a bunch of times, it just continues to say no signal. So John is coming over and we're gonna figure that out. Hey John!
So what are we doing?
So we're taking apart the PC build again. We're gonna rebuild the entire PC. No. We're gonna we took out the GPU and we're gonna check and see where the LED lights are so we can see where it should be lighting up, because the fans weren't spinning when the PC was actually on, and we think that that's probably the problem, and that's probably why there's no signal to the monitor. So we're gonna try that.
Yeah, everything looks good. It's warm, but the fans weren't turning on. So it's working? I don't know. Half working. But we're not getting display yet, so yeah. She's almost there.
Very close. Hey guys, so we have returned to the workshop, and as you can see, the system is booted. The PC works. And it has the startup screen on there right now. So basically I've already went to the boot menu for the BIOS setup, and I've already done that and checked all the features and then reset reset it to the defaults. And right now I am just choosing which drive to boot from. So I already chose to boot from my USB stick, which has the operating system on it. We went with Windows 10 because it is just the easiest one to go with and the most basic one, and it just works really well, and we just know that already. So we decided to go with Windows 10 Pro, and yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. I'm just waiting for the computer to be ready to deal with that. Hey everyone, so it has been a few weeks now since I've actually finished the computer build. Where I left you off, I was actually just about to go on a week-long trip to Hawaii. So it wasn't completely finished, although it was completely put together, but now it's completely finished, meaning that the BIOS setup is finished and the operating system is installed, and I have my different apps and programs installed on the computer, and obviously the drivers are installed too. So I'm just going to take you through which problems we were facing before I left for Hawaii that we had to troubleshoot for when I got back. So basically how it worked was, last I saw you guys, the BIOS setup was working, like I was able to boot into the BIOS setup, but the USB that we had set up with the operating system, it was, like the computer was not booting up to the USB and then accessing that operating system. So I couldn't figure out why, and none of us really knew why, and then I had to leave, and it was really up to the guys if they wanted to keep troubleshooting it or not while I was gone, and Sky did, so that's great. The first thing that Sky wanted to do, because he wanted to eliminate variables, was he moved the files from John's USB stick to his USB stick, because he knew that his USB stick worked perfectly, and that would eliminate that variable. The next thing he did was just check the BIOS setup, like the BIOS setup screen, to make sure that all the settings were good and there was nothing weird or wonky that needed to be changed so that you could boot up from a USB stick. And everything was fine there. And then he did a little bit more research, and he figured out that sometimes a computer doesn't boot up because the memory could be busted. So he went about checking out a couple of the different RAM sticks to see if any of them were faulty, and then basically I came home from Hawaii at that point, and he was just like, okay, here's what I've done, here's what I think the problem is, you just have to check the different RAM sticks and see which one's faulty. So I did that, and I figured out which one was faulty, and so 3 of them work. But one of them is bad, and so we are just getting a whole new set. We're just replacing the ones that we have so that we have 4 good ones. And right now my computer is set up with 2 RAM sticks rather than the total of 4 RAM sticks that we had originally intended. So that means that I only have 16 gigabytes of RAM making my computer run right now, when we originally intended for the system to have 32 gigabytes of RAM. But that will change as soon as we get our order in from Amazon. So that's going to happen really, really soon. Aside from that, everything's working great. I have Premiere Pro open right now, so hopefully I'll be able to release a lot more videos to you guys now that my computer is not nearly as slow like you saw in the beginning of the video.
Painful. It's supposed to be playing. Okay.
I had become a very patient person, and now because this computer is so much faster, I think I'm going to become a less patient person, so that's really the only con to it. All in all, the project was a really, really fun challenge, and I hope to do this kind of thing again in the future. If any of you out there are thinking like, hey, I think I want to build a PC, but I'm not sure if I'm completely knowledgeable enough to do that yet, let me just assure you, just do a little bit of research, and you will become knowledgeable enough. Some of the resources that I found were the most useful to me was Part Picker, for sure. If you go on Part Picker, then you can actually just click on the System Build button, and then it'll show you all the different components that you're going to need to build your PC, and then you would just figure out on your own which parts you actually want in those categories. Like, for example, your motherboard and your CPU and your RAM and your power supply and everything, and your case and many other things, other little things, and your peripherals like fans and keyboards and monitors. And then another great feature about Part Picker is that it will check for compatibility with all of those parts, and it will let you know if there's anything that's questionable there. Another really great resource that I liked was Tom's Hardware. I used that a lot for the different forums and for asking just specific questions, and usually you'd get an answer really, really quickly. So if some people at the workshop weren't sure of the answer to my question, then I'd just post it on Tom's Hardware, and usually someone would reassure me that that they had the answer to that and that everything was going to be okay. So that was fun. Most of our videos are about machining and knife making, but this has been kind of, I hope for you too, a little bit of a refreshing change from that. And we're going to dive back into knife making videos now, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you want to see more of me and the team. Yeah, hope to see you in the next video. Bye guys.